Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's so good to be back. It's so good to see everybody. How are you doing? I missed y'all. I'm excited to be back. I missed last week because I was on vacation. And of course, last week was the big, huge Xbox Bethesda showcase, Summer Game Fest, all of the goodies. And I wasn't around to react or break any of it down. But today, we're getting to do that chat, so I'm really excited. We got a ton to talk about, right? A ton. There was a whole bunch of stuff that happened. I'm sure you guys have already watched the shows. I'm sure you've already watched your favorite creators' content on this, but I'm excited to have a chance to chat with my audience about it and see what you guys thought, what the thoughts were on the show, the viewership, maybe disappointment or excitement or whatever you want to talk about. So what are the big topics for today? Of course, obviously, the ones I just listed, Xbox and Bethesda Showcase, Summer Game Fest, the Final Fantasy VII 25th Anniversary event where we got the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth announcement and the Crisis Core announcement. There's a whole bunch of discussion around the Last of Us franchise and really anything you guys want to talk about. So if this is your first time ever as part of this stream, it's a show that's 100% driven by you. Your comments, your questions, you just drop them down into chat. There's going to be two ways to do that. First of all, of course, there's the free method. You just type a question, whatever you want, pops into chat, and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can. If you want to guarantee that I get to your question, the way to do that is going to be the super chat option. Type a donation, whatever you want. It alerts me on the super chat, and I get to super chats immediately. However, don't feel pressured or obligated to donate in chat. It's just a way to help support me and the channel. I will get to as many free questions as I possibly can today as well. In terms of housekeeping notes, I don't think there's really much of anything other than I'm just excited to be back. I'm really excited to do a stream. I missed doing it last week. So start filling that chat up, guys. Let me know what you want to talk about in chat. I think we're pretty much good to go. So let's get rocking. Here we go. SD is going to kick us off here right off the top. I feel this way, and I feel that the Xbox showcase was good, yeah, but the sentiment was not that good, and I feel that the conversation around the Xbox showcase was short-lived a little. Between the polemic with Starfield, the 12-month game announcement for some good, bad for others, the bad middle section of the showcase, and is it not strange that Kojima making Xbox exclusive was not talked that much online? So here's the thing. So basically SD is saying that they think that the Xbox Bethesda showcase didn't exactly do big on social media. So I have two thoughts on this. First of all, one of them is that so I want to just say something that's pretty common on Twitter, and that is that the most vocal voices are largely not usually representative of the actual audience. And why do I mean that? So let's look at something really quick. Give me just a sec. I'm trying to pull something up here. So Jeff Keighley had a tweet that went out, right? And this thing had 111,000 votes. That is not a small number, okay? A lot of times polls or whatever are not really that reflective. A lot of times if you get let's just say a few hundred votes, or let's say you even get a couple thousand votes, that's not going to really mean a ton because while it's an interesting number, it's not a large number. Jeff Keighley ran a poll that got 111,000 votes. That is a large enough number to be meaningful, okay? And on his poll, 72% of voters voted this thing as a B or better. I mean, that's good, right? That's a good show. However, I do think that there are some points that are being made online about the Xbox and Bethesda showcase that I agree with as well. So did I think that this was a perfect showcase? No. In fact, if someone's asking me my personal opinion, I think last year's show was better than this year's show. First, though, I want to mention the things that I thought were big positives out of this showcase, right? If this showcase was designed primarily as a Game Pass marketing tool, if that was the goal of the showcase, which I don't know, I haven't talked to anyone at Xbox, but I made a tweet about this. That was the vibe I got, was that this was essentially, think about like a Netflix day or a Disney Plus day or something like that, where they're trying to garner excitement for their subscription service. That is what this show felt like to me, primarily as a way to drive advertising for Game Pass. And I think as a show designed around that, designed around here's the next 12 months of your Game Pass subscription, less about talking about an entire ecosystem, though they did that, but it felt more to me like a marketing for Game Pass. I think it delivered on that front. Because there was a ton of games in there that I'm excited to play over the next 12 months. With a Game Pass subscription, it makes a lot of games that I wouldn't normally buy more attractive. So some of these smaller, AA or indie projects I'm going to be more interested in than I normally would be if they weren't on Game Pass, right? It just going into Game Pass automatically makes me more interested in the title because I know I don't have to pay for it, right? I can just download the game and play it. So I think as a show designed strictly around that, if that's the mentality that you're taking into, here is the next year of Game Pass until our showcase next year. Here's what you're going to get. We're going to show you a whole bunch of stuff around that. I think the show was largely a success. Now, looking at the show as in the more traditional way we view showcases, right? How they've been in the past, where it's really just about driving hype and excitement and crazy reveals, right? That sort of thing. This show, I think, didn't deliver on that. There were some really good things here. There were some really cool announcements, but a lot of the show was things that we already knew existed. It was more just updates on them. And then a lot of the newer reveals, like that were new announcements, weren't necessarily the quote megatons that you like to see, right? The big, I guess, probably closest thing to that was the Kojima announcement. But a little bit of the wildness of that announcement was taken off of the announcement because so many of us already knew that was coming, right? So I'm of two minds of the show. Largely, I gave the show a B+. I think that's a pretty fair score. I see some people that really liked this show, some people that really hated the show. One thing I will say is I do think that the people that are screaming about how this was a terrible show and things like that, those people are largely unrepresentative of the larger audience. I think most people thought this was a good show, but maybe not necessarily an outstanding show. And yeah, I think one thing that's limiting Xbox big time with their showcases moving forward, if this is going to be the strategy, I think there's two potential issues in terms of making their showcases like hit really big in terms of like people freaking out online and being hyped, is going to be if they stick to this 12-month cadence, and also if they stick to if they're going to just keep doing their third-party showings, primarily games that are going to be on Game Pass. If you notice this show, they had very little content on there that was from third-party that's not going to be on Game Pass. And in fact, the big ones you could point to, Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2. Overwatch 2 is a free-to-play game, so, whatever. And Diablo is probably going to be on Game Pass, considering Microsoft will more than likely own Activision by then. So Blizzard, as of now, isn't first-party, but them being included in a major way in the show was kind of almost like a wink and a nod from Microsoft that, hey, this is going to be coming too. We just can't outright say that yet because we don't own them. But it was essentially Microsoft beginning to have Blizzard as part of their rotation in terms of first-party showings. But if you look at what made the last State of Play, for example, so like well-regarded online and people freaking out and stuff, was that, think about this, many of the big things that were in that showcase were multi-platform games. Street Fighter 6, that's going to be on everything. Resident Evil 4 Remake, that's going to be on everything. Callisto Protocol was in that show, that's going to be on everything. But people got really excited, and we're talking about how great of a State of Play it was, because these are games that people are ultra amped for, right? And just seeing them on someone else's stage automatically associates in your head with that branding. So if Microsoft is going to continue to let Sony get major big game reveals strictly because they're kind of have an ethos that if you're going to be on their stage, you need to be on Game Pass. That is going to limit things, and so is this 12-month window. So overall, I thought pretty good show, solid B+, but I think it's going to be hard for their showcases to really get crazy hype if those are going to be the mandates moving forward. So we'll have to see. I liked that they showed a lot of gameplay here. That was nice. But it did lack a few big announcements, right? I think if you had this exact same showcase, but you had 2 other or 3 other really big announcements of new games, I think a lot of people would have looked at the show as like an A. The thing that it was missing, I think, a bit were those big, crazy reveals. Oh my goodness, I can't believe this game just got announced. We haven't seen it before. There wasn't a lot of that. And I think that's what held it back for some people. All right. I think we had a super chat drop. Let me hit that super chat. We did. Dead Planet here with the 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Dead Planet. For a show that should have had 0 fat on it, and Microsoft had apparently asked all its studios for material, this was blubbery as a whale for me. Yeah, I don't agree. That's where I'm just not going to agree with you, Dead Planet. I appreciate the super chat. Everyone's up, has their own opinions on the show. It's an opinion-based thing, so your opinion's as valid as mine. I don't agree with that, though. I thought the show flowed very, very well. If I had any criticism of it, it definitely was not that it lacked on content in terms of like just number of announcements or that the pacing was bad. I thought both of those things were great. It really was just lacking a couple big reveals. The main issue for you here in terms of like the first party stuff, I think that rumor was false, and I think we can clearly see that. There was a rumor that was going around that Microsoft asked all of its studios for material. I think we can assume that that's definitely not true because the mandate of the show is the next 12 months. And from what we can see here, most of their studios are not launching in the next 12 months. So whoever heard that, I don't remember if it came from Jez Corden. I really like Jez, so if so, he's super informed at Xbox. But I don't think that piece of info was accurate that was being reported, because why would they be asking their studios for content when they know they're not coming out in the next 12 months, right? So that part I don't think was true in the reporting. But yeah, I think it also depends on if you're a Game Pass subscriber. If you watch this show and let's say you're just like a PlayStation player or you're a Switch player and you're not subscribed to Game Pass, I think this show is a lot less attractive. If you are subscribed to Game Pass, though, I saw probably 20 games in the show that I want to play. Again, I don't know if I would have played them all if I wasn't a Game Pass subscriber. So I get why this show has a very wide range of opinions on it. Because it depends on how you look at the show entirely. But I think it was a worse show than last year, I will say that. Last year, yes, we didn't get as much gameplay, but you got really cool announcements, right? That's when we first found out about the Outer Worlds 2. That's whenever they first showed you your very first snippet of Starfield. That's when you got the Redfall announcement. There were so many cool announcements that it was exciting. This show was definitely less exciting. It was a good show, but not as hype or exciting of a show, is how I would put it, at least to me. But again, everyone's opinion is going to be different and valid. It's an opinion-based thing. Lockany here. Hi, Benji. Hope you had a great holiday. I did. It was one of the best vacations I've ever had. I've had vacations before where you get back from the vacation and you almost don't feel any better than you did when you left because let's say it was a stressful vacation or you were just so busy. This was the right kind of vacation. I came back and I feel amazing. I feel so much better. So thank you for that. I want to ask about the game release starting to release only on next gen, starting with Forspoken and the latest is Final Fantasy 16. What are your thoughts about it? I told you guys this. I told you, anybody that's been watching my stream, I told you that starting next year, you're going to start to see a lot of games that are current gen only. Both games that were announced and games that I knew that are unannounced and are still unannounced that are going to be current gen only starting next year. I've known this was coming for a bit. It makes sense. The install base by next year is going to be pretty big. we always are so focused on these shortages, and it is a legitimate problem. But one thing people are forgetting is that the combined install base of PS5 and Xbox Series, despite these brutal shortages, it's increasing at a rapid rate. Now, by next year, you're going to have PS5 over 30 million units, and you're going to have Xbox over 20 million units. These things are going to be combined at an over 50 million unit install base by next year between the two, right? Not one of the platforms, but between Series X and S and PS5, you're going to be at over 50 million by next year. I mean, that is a big enough audience now that you can start launching current gen only. So I don't think people should be surprised by that. 2022, it still made a lot of sense for a lot of games to be cross-gen because that install base was still building up. It was still growing. The shortages were impacting, right? So it made sense for all of this year to still be focused on cross-gen for most studios. But by next year, that install base is big enough you can start to go current gen. You really, really can. That doesn't mean that I'm going to tell you that every game next year is current gen only, that you won't see any cross-gen games, nothing like that. But in 2023, you're going to see a lot of games that are current gen only. And the install base is there to support it next year. By next year, it'll be big enough to support that. Travel Peck, Benji boy, what is up, Travel Peck? Joseki, hi Benji. Thoughts on Persona releasing on everything except Switch? Joseki, this is super weird, right? I keep waiting for there to be an announcement that this is going to be on Switch because it's super weird to not do that. This is a great announcement for the Xbox audience because here I want to give one shout out here to Phil Spencer and to Microsoft for listening. This is something that the Xbox fan base has been asking for quite a while now. If you looked in Phil's mentions, if you looked at tweets that were going to Xbox, people have been asking for Persona specifically for quite a while now, and just more Japanese support in general. I want to give a shout out here for sure to Phil and the Xbox team for making this happen because I'm highly doubtful that this was just Atlas approaching Microsoft and saying, hey, here's Persona. I have a feeling that they had to work on this deal, right, to get this to happen. And I think a very clear marker of that being the case is the fact that these are launching on Game Pass. That means Microsoft had to be involved quite a bit. So I want to give them a shout out for that. That's really great that they're listening to their audience and the things that they're asking for. So great for Xbox owners that this is going to finally happen. Obviously, it's cool it's going to be on PS5 as well, but PlayStation's already had Persona. Very cool for PC now that some of these games are going to be coming that weren't before, like Persona 5. But it's an especially cool announcement for the Xbox fan base. Here's one thing I do want to say. Y'all Xbox gamers better support this when it comes, because as much as people complain about the lack of Japanese support on Xbox, if you're going to demand this to happen, you need to support the titles. Just flat out, you gotta support them if that's what you want. If you really truly want to see more Japanese games, you better get out there and support it. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean everyone needs to go out and buy Persona whenever it comes out on Xbox, because as we know, the way the financials, the way everything works for Microsoft's different now. But between buying this game and hopefully a lot of people engage with this on Game Pass, I'm really hopeful that you'll see Persona hit that most popular list on Game Pass. Fingers crossed that this happens. But if these games bomb, if they underperform when they come to Xbox, the Xbox audience won't have anyone to blame but themselves. That's just the truth of it, okay? This is a game that people have been asking for quite a while. I've been seeing people constantly asking for Persona. If they don't engage with this game, you guys don't have anyone to blame but yourselves for it if you don't see future Persona or Japanese content on the platform. So get behind it. Now, in regards to Switch, it's weird, right? Because I think there's no debate that these games would sell way better on Switch than they're going to on Xbox. Anyone that thinks otherwise, and I love Xbox, just you're crazy. It's going to sell way more on Switch than it ever would on Xbox consoles. It's a very weird choice, Joseki. I have no explanation for it other than thinking maybe it's going to come eventually. But it's weird. I literally could not tell you, considering it's everything else. It'd be one thing if it was like still just Atlas being Atlas and being weird, and this game was like going to go on Xbox, but they still weren't going to release Persona on PC or something, then you could be like, it's just them being them. But the fact it's literally everything. It's going to be on PlayStation, it's going to be on Xbox, it's going to be on Steam. It's like, why would you leave out Switch, the platform that of the new platforms, not counting PlayStation, would account for a huge amount of sales? Don't know, Joseki. It's very strange. I could not give you an answer on that. It's a strange choice. Travel Peck. What do you think of Sony not attending Gamescom? I think we have to assume now Sony will never come back to those events, right? Zubitech yesterday did a tweet with stats. The state of play of this June have more views on YouTube than E3 2016 of PlayStation, the ones with God of War reveal, Spider-Man, etc. That's incredible. State of play having more views than E3 shows. Well, that person has me blocked, I believe. Zubitech. Every time I see that people are retweeting that account, I can't see their tweets. So I think they blocked me, so I couldn't see that to analyze, or maybe I muted them and just forgot. Which, if so, I apologize. But I think Zubitech, whoever that is, has me blocked. Well, like I said, there is a chance that I muted them because I mute a lot of accounts and I just forgot that was someone I muted. Maybe they were, I'm not saying that they were being a fanboy. Maybe someone was being a fanboy on my tweets and I muted them. But I think I'm blocked by that account. So I can't see the comparisons that they made. However, yeah, do I think Sony's ever going back to E3 or Gamescom or anything? No. No. Sony is at the position now that they think that they can just do their own thing whenever they want and that they can get a big audience view, and they're right. Like, if you look at the numbers, I've tweeted them before too in the past, for like their state of plays and for, their showcases that they do on their own, and the viewership is gigantic. They don't need any of these other places. Now, do I think that Gamescom, like Sony might go back to Gamescom at some point just to like have a booth and have people be able to play games and stuff like that? I think that's possible, but do I think they'll ever have like a showcase type thing or a big Sony like, viewing of new announcements at Gamescom? No, I don't think so. I think they're completely focused on doing their own thing now. They have full control over it. They don't need to pay anyone. There's no partnership or anything like that. So yeah, Travel. I don't think that you will see them ever at E3, ever at Gamescom, or any of that ever again. I don't think so. Javier Culper. Benji-Sales. Final Fantasy Remake exclusive permanent now. Final Fantasy Rebirth exclusive, possibly. Pretty sure Final Fantasy Remake Part 3 exclusive. Final Fantasy 16 exclusive. Valkyrie Elysium exclusive. Man, when Sony will acquire Square Enix, that's the question. Okay, so I think that this Final Fantasy VII Rebirth announcement made one thing very clear, which was something we were all wondering. Yeah, these games aren't coming to Xbox. The Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy ain't going to happen. Now, I want to put a clause in this. There is potentially a chance, I would say, after all three of these games are out, that maybe at that point, Square Enix, I don't know how this contract works at all. I don't think any of us do. But maybe there's a chance there in the contract saying that after all three games are out, then they can go to other, like Xbox. But I think it's very, 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 very clear now that Sony at some point renegotiated exclusivity for this entire trilogy. I think there's no debate about that anymore. The original remake ended its cycle, right, of what was the previously announced exclusivity deal. Then we found out that whenever Intermission was announced, there was new marketing update that said that was also exclusive for an additional year. Now we're past that, and not only did that not get announced to be coming to Xbox when it's coming to Steam, also Rebirth was announced, and that game is also PS5 only. I think it's very, very, very clear that Sony worked out a contract with Square Enix, a new one, that all three of these games are PlayStation exclusives. They'll come to PC maybe a year afterwards, and they're not coming to Xbox except for maybe after all of these are out. Why am I so confident that that is the case? Because I can tell you right now, if it was just a case of like, the Final Fantasy VII Remake, the first game, had no contract on it, I can almost promise you that that game would be hitting Xbox because Phil Spencer would pay for it. That's just the fact. He knows that so many people are asking for Final Fantasy. He knows that some, people have been demanding more Japanese support. Look at what happened with Persona. There is no chance that Phil Spencer would just leave that franchise on the table. Even if Square Enix didn't on themselves want to bring it, trust me, Phil Spencer would make that financially impossible for them. You get what I'm saying? He would come to them with a very big Game Pass offer. I can promise you millions and millions of dollars and say, we're going to pay you millions to put this thing on Game Pass on Xbox. And the fact that's not happening tells me that, Square Enix and Sony renegotiated and have a longer term deal on these 3 games. So, Javier, maybe those will come to Xbox after all 3 are out. We don't know. But for now, I would say to the Xbox audience, you should probably stop asking for these for now because I think it's contractually probably impossible for them to come. I think so. And as to your second part, when will Sony acquire Square Enix? That is one I've never ruled out. I have never ruled out that Sony might not buy Square Enix. They are clearly paying for a lot of games from them. For Square Enix themselves, it doesn't look super attractive because they've had some really good successes with Switch on some of their games. However, we'll have to see. But right now, like I've always said, I don't think it's likely, but I don't think it's impossible. So if you asked me to bet on it, I would not bet that this happens. However, if that announcement were to happen, I wouldn't be shocked by it. It could happen. But I still, for now, think that Square Enix will remain independent, but Sony will just sign a lot of exclusives from them. Let me see. I think there might have been a super chat. There's a couple super chats. Let me hit these super chats really quick. Matt Duffy with a 2. Benji, the people are with you. You are a legend. Matt Duffy always with the hype. Matt Duffy always with the positive comments and the support. Thank you so much, Matt Duffy. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the support lately. I really appreciate it. I've been tweeting a bit less lately just because I was on vacation. And honestly, the news cycle has already started drying up again after these showcases. There was a lot to talk about during that, but already you're seeing the announcements rapidly fall off. I worry that the next few months could be really boring for video game news. I hope I'm wrong because this year in general has been pretty awful for video game news. As somebody that goes out of their way to try to cover the video game industry, this has been one of the worst years since I started Twitter on covering games. I'm just going to be honest. It's been one of the least interesting years because we're really feeling the delay impact now from COVID. The release lineup for this year is, I see some people mad when people mention this, that it's a really bad year for game releases. I think there's 2 ways to look at that. I don't think people are, because I've seen some people be like, that's really mean to the companies that are coming out and, the titles that are going to make it. I don't think that's what people mean whenever they say that in terms of those of us that look at the market. There's going to still be a lot of great content that comes out this year. But in terms of the market, right? Just looking at the industry and what the industry needs to be super healthy and a ton of releases, it's a terrible year. I'm just going to be honest with you. The very, very end of the year is going to be pretty nice with stuff like Call of Duty, hopefully God of War. Last of Us getting announced is pretty nice. We had a really great start to the year, but this middle section of the year, really from April-ish all the way until September, is not good. That's just the reality. It's not been a good thing for the industry in terms of release slate. So, it's kind of difficult to cover right now because there's just so little interesting happening. But hopefully it picks up. And there has been some really cool stuff in the last couple weeks at least. Thank you, Matt. Timmer72299 with a 2 super chat. Thank you, Timmer. Last super chat for the summer. I'm a bit broke. Oh, Timmer. Dude, you don't have to ever give super chats. I appreciate that. I think you do a support super chat in almost every single stream. No one should ever donate in super chats to me if it's at all remotely going to impact your finances. I really appreciate the super chats. They really help me. But y'all, never, if you're in a situation where you're like, man, money's a bit tight, don't even think about donating in my super chat. Don't even think about it. Keep your money. I really hope anyone that donates in super chats, it's just like you have the funds, you have the means, and you're comfortable doing it. But Timmer, dude, don't even sweat the super chats, man. I appreciate it, and thank you for all the support. Dead Planet here with the 2 super chat. Thank you, Dead Planet. That's your second one. I might be alone, but I think Pentiment looks cool. It does. Dead Planet, that looks very cool. Now, this game, I hate to say it because it's so weird. But sorry, I lost my train of thought. I got distracted by another comment. So yes, Pentiment. It looks very, very cool, but this thing did really bad numbers on social media. I'm not surprised by that because it is very, very, very different. I mean, if you look at the trailer for that, that is like not a game that's going to get a ton of mainstream attention. However, a couple things we do know, which is good. We know this is a small team at Obsidian. This isn't like a big giant AAA project for them where they're pumping just tons and tons of money into it. So luckily, I really don't think that budget's going to be very big. And second of all, it's the kind of game I could see if it like reviews really well and people really like it getting a lot of attention after release. Now, I don't think a game like that could ever be gigantic at all, like ever. Like even if this thing comes out and let's say got a crazy 90s Metacritic, I'm not predicting that, but like let's say it happens, do I think that that's all of a sudden going to result in millions and millions and millions of sales? No, because I think a game like this just does have a ceiling on how high it can go. But despite the social media numbers being really, really low and poor for this, poor, you know what I'm saying, like by big game standards, I wouldn't rule out it having a nice successful run if it's good. But it looks cool, very cool. Not many games like that out there, right? Someone saying that Zuby Tech, again, something about PS5 stock. Again, I'm pretty sure this user has me blocked, so I can't see any of their tweets, so I'm not going to comment on it. I sometimes find I'm blocked by really random accounts. Like that Zuby Tech one, as far as I remember, I've never interacted with that person in my entire life. There's some weird ones like that, where all of a sudden you'll just look, I'm sure you guys have had this too, where you just see a random account and you're blocked and you're like, I don't even know who you are. How are you have me blocked? But again, I could be wrong. Maybe I muted that account, and if so, I feel bad, maybe, depending on what that account tweets. Okay. Back to Jocelyn Joe. Benji, next year for Xbox, Starfield, Forza, Redfall, and possibly Hellblade and other surprises, Avowed, Fable for me are 2024. PlayStation, Spider-Man 2, Final Fantasy 16, maybe Final Fantasy Rebirth, and Knights of the Old Republic, Factions, and other unannounced live service games. And of course, the next Destiny big expansion, haven't seen anything yet. 20 plus PS Studios. Do you think we can say PlayStation and Xbox will have a big game per quarter? Yes. Next year is going to be really big for both PlayStation and Xbox. It's going to be a really big year next year for everybody. I think 2023 is going to be where you start to see the industry really start recovering from COVID, right? It's still very impacted 2022. That much is very, very clear. I'm not going to say everything's going to be sugar and rainbows and perfect in 2023, but I think that's going to be the year where you start to see development really recover in terms of output, because a lot of those games that are going to launch in 2023 were games that were like one of the reasons 2022 was so bad is because a lot of the games that came out early in the pandemic that got delayed, right? Like the 2021 releases and some of the early 2022 releases, these were games that were already very far in development. So even though COVID did impact things very badly, as we've seen, some games getting delayed as much as a year, they at least already had created the core foundations for most of these games. The games that are going to come out in 2023 a lot of them were projects that were just beginning development, right, whenever this pandemic started. So that pushed them very far off, right? Pushed them years off all the way to 2023, and some of them even 2024. But I think next year is going to be where you start to see the games start to recover. So yes, Jocelyn Joe next year should be very, very big. I do think that we will see a game per quarter from Xbox for sure, because we already know for sure that Forza, Redfall, and Starfield are all targeting the first half of the year, because they're all targeting within 12-month window of this. So by June, and there's no way they don't have games for the holiday as well. So yes, and then PlayStation, they already had a really good release slate this year, actually, when you look at it. And next year, I think it'll be strong as well. So yep, should be great. JCat saying, hi folks, what is up JCat? Great to see you. Thank you so much for helping moderate the channel. Thank you for always being so amazing, JCat. I really appreciate it. Great to see you. Oh, and Jocelyn Joe's last question. Who do you think will have a better and more successful year? That is very tough because we don't really know the lineup. If you say, like, who do I think might have the better first-party output, this might sound controversial, but I think Xbox might, and I think a big part of that is because of delays of this year, because Starfield got pushed into next year, because Redfall got pushed into next year, because Forza, from what I understand, at one point was targeting this year, but is now pushed into next year. I think there's a legitimate chance that Xbox has just a higher output. But PlayStation has some major heavy hitter potential. I mean, Spider-Man 2, gigantic, as we all know. That'll be ridiculous. But a lot outside of that, we don't actually know what's coming. Like, we all have a lot of theories, right? We all think that Factions 2, it's not really Factions 2, but that The Last of Us multiplayer games next year. We actually don't really know that because all they showed was concept art and they didn't announce a date. They just said it's coming. I think we all think it's going to be next year now, but we don't know that. We also don't know that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's next year. It just says next winter. That could mean that it's going to be December, but that also could mean it's January or February. So PlayStation's a bit of an unknown just because there's a lot of stuff that we don't actually know yet. They really need to have a showcase soon to give us an update on what's coming. But right now, if you just ask me to bet with a lot of unknowns on the table, I would say I think there's actually a legit chance that Xbox has a better output because I think there's a good chance they have just strictly more games next year. But I don't know that. I need to see what PlayStation, a showcase to announce a lot of stuff. So that'll give us a better idea. All right. What up, Red Dead Series? Great to see you. DR Amaro, what is up? Benji-Sales, I think Fire Sprite is the next Bungie of Sony. They're like 300 employees, and now Sony bought a place 10 times or more bigger for them in the UK. And they're working on more than 4 projects. 2 multiplayer, the mobile game, 1 dark narrative game, and VR Horizon, Zero Dawn game. What do you think of that team? DR, I think that's a great shout out. I think that Fire Sprite is going to become a very big player for Sony. You know, when this was first announced, this was one of those studios that felt kind of random during the announcement, right? Because I think myself and a lot of people didn't realize how big Fire Sprite was. Like, when this announcement was first made, I was like, that's cool. Like, it's cool to keep seeing, you know, Sony staffing up, getting more first party. But I wasn't super, like, I had known that they did that one VR game. What was it called? Like, The Persistence, maybe? I think that was what it was called. Like, I'd heard of the studio, but I wasn't, like, super in-depth knowledge on them. And then I started researching, and like you said, they're big. 300-plus employees. They got a bigger new studio. It seems they're staffing up. I agree with you. I think this could potentially become a very big player for Sony in the coming years. Yeah, I really think that that potential is there. Do I think it's going to necessarily for sure be the next Insomniac or Naughty Dog or Santa Monica? Who knows? But I think it is going to become an important studio. Yeah, I think so. That's a good shout out. Eddie Brock. Hello there, Benji. Gotham Knights is looking rough. That gameplay demo didn't look good, and it is releasing the same month as MW2. Is it DOA? If so, could WB Montreal get shut down? People were not impressed with the gameplay either. Not a lot of excitement. I think that, you know, I usually don't want to root for a game delay, but I think this, if any game needs to be delayed right now that's announced, it's probably this one. First of all, launching that close to Modern Warfare 2 is going to be a mistake for anybody. I've talked about this on this chat before. No one outside of Nintendo first party, because we've discussed this, that's a bit of a different thing. Like, seriously, like the Nintendo games can kind of launch wherever because the way that they've built their ecosystem is so different than PlayStation and Xbox, and that the main draw of Nintendo is their first party. People like to say that's the case for PlayStation and Xbox, but the sales numbers kind of prove not really. Does it have an impact? Absolutely. So I'm not one of those people that tells you first party is not important. It's very important. But what I mean is an amazing selling PlayStation exclusive. If it's an amazing top tier exclusive, we're talking it does like 20 million units or so on a, over 100 million unit install base. Nintendo, like, the vast bulk of the games they're selling on there that are really, really, really big sellers are their first party. They have some third party success too, for sure. But Nintendo can kind of launch their games wherever. They're not really competing with third party games. You get what I'm saying? That's the main point I'm driving home. Nintendo first party is not most of the time competing with third party games. Whereas PlayStation and Xbox, third party is so big on those platforms that you have to be a little more careful where you launch your first party content, because you could come up into direct conflict, right? So I think anybody, whether it's Gotham Knights, whether it's anything else, you all should be staying away from MW2. Like, no one should be within like 2 weeks of that game. Let that thing have all the air to itself, because it's going to be a monster. So it should just get out of the way of Modern Warfare 2. And second of all, yeah, that gameplay did not look great. Now, there's a chance maybe that this game looks a lot better by the time it does come out. That you can't always assume that a showing is going to be directly relevant to how the game's going to launch in. We have seen games improve from showings to showings. But, yeah, that game should not be, I don't think, launching then, Eddie. I think they should delay it. Yep, I think so. But we'll have to see. Joseph Crank. Benji, when do you think PS will have their own showcase? With the Xbox showcase being overshadowed by the Last of Us conversation. Again, this is another... I'm going to show you. This is another example of it's just not true. It's just not true. A lot of people mistake Twitter for real life. And let me give you an example for that. And Final Fantasy Conversation Online, Resident Evil and Square Showcases is a good call from Sony, having their event late in the summer. And welcome back, Benji. Well, thank you for welcoming me back. But again, all you got to do is look at YouTube, right? So look at this. And this is not meant in any way as an insult to The Last of Us. It's just showing you an example of why you can't always take Twitter tweets and think that that's representative of real life. So in regards to The Last of Us overshadowing Xbox, The Last of Us Part 1's highest viewed trailer right now is at 1.8 million views in 12 days on the PlayStation channel. Meanwhile, Starfield, on just the Bethesda channel, has 2.5 million views in 9 days. Already has way higher views in less days. So that's not to say Starfield is going to be a bigger hit than The Last of Us. That's not to take anything away from The Last of Us. It just means, y'all, you need to be very careful. I'm always very careful on this. Don't always think that people tweeting things means that that's real life. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, Sony already took all of Microsoft's thunder with just their state of play. No, it's not true. They had some really big announcements. They've had some great stuff. The Last of Us Part 1 is going to be huge. It's going to sell a ton. This isn't me taking away from it. But it didn't overshadow things like Starfield. That's just not the reality. It's not the reality. Now, in regards to, do I think it's a good time for Sony to show stuff soon? Yeah, they need to. They really need to. This Last of Us announcement's making me wonder some things, right? Feels like if Sony had a big showcase soon, that would be something that was in their own showcase. I keep thinking that in September we're going to get a showcase from Sony, and that's still possible. Actually, now that I think about it, no, that wouldn't affect it at all because that game's coming out in September. So it actually makes sense. So yeah, no, Joseph, I'm going to still stick to September. I still think that's when Sony has their event. I've been saying that for months and months and months. I think that's when their event's going to be, is September. So I'm going to stick to that. That would be my guess, Joseph. Casual Gamer. Benji Boy. So PlayStation chooses to have big events in September. As we were just saying. But that means leaving fans an entire year between the events. Leaving fans hungry for news or 9 months. Could fan feedback change that? Not if they keep having really good state of plays like that one that they had, right? And I know that was basically a third-party one, but it was a good show. People really enjoyed it. I think it's okay. I think it's okay to still just have one big September showcase per year if, and this is an if, they keep doing stuff during state of plays and having good state of plays. Now, if they don't have any big stuff at state of plays and they, really cut back on the amount of those, that would be an issue, right? If you literally just had one showcase, nothing else for the rest of the year, that'd be a problem. But as long as you have one really big showcase, good state of plays for each individual game, the big ones when they're coming out, right? Like we've seen with The Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima, etc. And some really nice third-party ones with maybe a first-party game sprinkled in or two on them. You're okay. You're okay. They don't need to have like 2 big showcases per year. I don't think so. Miles Morales. Hello. So do you think PlayStation let their studios have creative freedom? If so, why won't they let Polyphony Digital, San Diego create new IP/games besides GTMLB? And what's the evidence they have that they have creative freedom? Didn't Jason leak that studios are forced to create big blockbuster titles with few outliers like Miles Morales? Do you think PlayStation studios are free to make whatever? Miles, I think it's like everything else in the industry when you're a platform holder or a major publisher. It's a bit of a balance. So, creative freedom is important. So let me make that first very, very clear before I say the second part of what I'm going to say here. So creative freedom is very important. You need to foster creativity. You need to give your studios, opportunities to come up with new things because that's how you get major new franchises, right? If nobody came up with Uncharted, you wouldn't have the Uncharted franchise. If no one came up with God of War, you wouldn't have the God of War franchise. So you always need to have new IP working. You always need to have new creative thoughts coming. You always have to do all of that. At the same time, though, you can't, if you're a good publisher and you're a good run platform holder, have unlimited freedom and creativity. Because at the end of the day, this is a business. It's all a business. Whether you're a tiny, tiny indie developer with one person, I promise you that that tiny indie dev, that's just that one guy or that one girl. They want to make money on the game. Like they're happy, they're excited that it's a creative venture, but you still don't want to go broke, right? You want to make money. So it needs to be a balance. If you're a big giant platform holder or a big giant publisher, while it's true that you do need to foster that creativity, it's also an irresponsible thing if you're just letting big, giant franchises sit and they could be successful and they could perform well, right? Because it is a business. Like you need to be creative, but you also got to make a lot of money. And so I think it's all about, and that's a difficult balance to strike, right? It's going to be tough, just like how you're seeing from some of the reports, Sony trying really hard to get an Uncharted game made, and they're trying to figure out who's going to make it, right? It sounded like at one point they wanted Naughty Dog to make it, but they wouldn't do it. So then they were trying to get it done with Bend, but then Bend wouldn't do it. So clearly it looks like behind the scenes, like that's an example of what I'm talking about, where it's like Sony knows that just leaving Uncharted's a mistake. And they're right. I'm telling you right now, having no Uncharted coming out, it's a big, big mistake. They know that. But at the same time, they're running into that problem of like, well, some of our teams don't want to make it. How do we get this done? It's a tough balance to strike, but you got to do both. You got to have creative freedom, but you also can't ignore major IP and just let them sit. You know what I mean? It's just a balance. It's all about a balance. Zinfamous. Benji, a stats card coming up for UFC 276 next week. Who do you have winning the 2 title fights? I personally have both champs retaining, Volk and Izzy. Yeah, so it's Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway 3, correct? And it's Israel Adesanya versus oh my goodness, my brain. Oh my goodness, come on. He's a beast. Oh my goodness. Sorry, my brain's not working right now. Jared Cannonier, right? So who am I picking in those 2 title fights? Dude, Volk and Max is such a coin flip because I think Volk did win the first fight. Both fights were very controversial in terms of scoring. I do think Volkanovski won the first fight. However, I do think Max Holloway won the rematch. I know it was razor close and super controversial, but I did score that for Max. But Volk has looked amazing lately. If I had to bet, I'm going to bet Volkanovski, but man, do not count Max Holloway out. That thing I could see being another razor. I mean, I have no idea. I'm going to pick Volk, but when I say I'm picking Volk, it's like 51% confident that he'll win compared to 49% Maxwell. Like, that to me is how close this fight is. So I'm going to pick Volk, but I ain't confident in it. Max could very much win this fight. Izzy and Jared, I think, will be... I'm pretty confident Izzy wins it. Jared Cannonier is a beast. He has ridiculous power. I mean, his power is great. He's super athletic. Like, in terms of who's the better athlete of the two. Not that Izzy's not a good athlete, but Jared Cannonier, you just look at the guy, he's so explosive. He's the better athlete. And I think it's a dangerous fight for Izzy. He needs to be very careful, especially early. I would say those first 2 rounds, Izzy's got to be very, very careful. But I feel like he's so much more technical than Jared that unless he gets caught with something big, unless Jared can get a big shot in there in those first 2 rounds, I think over time Izzy will piece him up and pick him apart. I would pick Izzy by a late finish. That's how I'm going to predict. I think Izzy's not going to get it done early. He's going to have to be careful. I'm going to pick Izzy maybe 4th round, TKO, KO. And then for Volk and Max, I'm going to pick Volk by decision. I don't think he can finish Max. I'd be very shocked. So that's how I'd pick it. All right. We got Kellegrim with a 20. Holy cow, dude. That is very generous. Kellegrim with a 20 super. Dude, you do not got to do that, Kellegrim. Thank you so much, man. It's great to see you here, buddy. But you do not got to do that, my guy. Thank you. Sup, Benji? Any comment on Aspire admitting that the Switch port of Knights of the Old Republic 2 is a game-breaking bug? This is crazy. I don't know if you guys have seen this. Does this kill any sales potential? In the short term, yeah. There is no current ETA on a patch. Also, glad you had a great vacation, dude. Well, thank you first so much, Kellegrim. Good friend, good buddy. Thank you so much, man. Yeah, this is crazy. If you guys have missed this, from what I understand, I am not playing the game, but from what I understand, you literally cannot complete Knights of the Old Republic 2 on Switch right now. There's some sort of bug that makes it that you like literally cannot beat the game. That is crazy. Like, we've seen some bad bugs before. From what I understand, though, this is like super widespread. Like, it's not like we've seen this kind of thing before, unfortunately, in games where there's like a quest that's bugged that people can't get past, and it might affect some percentage of players, but not necessarily like everybody. From what I understand, this is like super widespread. Like, it's a huge issue. Yeah, sales, it's going to completely kill sales in the short term as word gets out. So that's bad. They're going to have to get that fixed ASAP. When they can do that, who knows? But that needs to be priority number 1 before anything else at that studio. Like, figuring out how to fix that. Hopefully they get a patch in soon. But in the short term, Kellegrim, no doubt, this absolutely kills sales. Absolutely. There's going to be a few people probably still that buy it that are unaware of it. But as word gets out, it's going to completely kill it. Yep, that's very bad. That's a crazy situation. Crazy situation. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kellegrim, for that super chat, man. I think we just had another super chat hit. We did. Highlander with a 5. Thank you so much, Highlander. And great to see you, man. Hey, Benji. Hope you enjoyed your vacation. Sorry I'm late. Highlander, no issues at all being late, man. No issues at all. Thank you for that super chat. I really appreciate it. I mentioned off the top I had a great vacation. One of the best of my entire life. The kind of vacation you come back from and you feel re-energized, which is really what I needed. You know, I made a tweet about it. I was so depressed in the last few weeks. You guys know I struggle in general, but like it had gotten really bad again in the last few weeks, and I feel so much better. So it was much needed, and thank you for that super chat, Highlander. All right, super chats are cleared for now. Thank you so much, everybody. back to your free questions. How long have we been going? We still got time. I'm still going to have a lot of free questions. So if you have a free question in here and you're worried, I'm not going to promise you I'm going to get to all of them, but I'm still going to get to a lot. So don't worry about it. So where did I leave off on that? All right, Silence PP7. Good to see you, Silenced. Great to see you. Todd confirmed Fallout 5 is next after The Elder Scrolls 6, which we know is still in pre-production. Is there any way Microsoft will let Fallout remain dormant for that long? What should they do outside of Fallout 76? This is a fantastic question, Silence, and I am of the opinion that they can't let Fallout rest that long. Can't do it. Because we're talking about Starfield's not even out. That comes out next year. Elder Scrolls 6 is in pre-production. If you want to be extremely optimistic, because Todd has said that they've been doing pre-production alongside Starfield development. Now, it doesn't mean full-scale development. It just means it's not a case that no one's working on Elder Scrolls 6. There are people working on Elder Scrolls 6 all this time, but the vast bulk of development's on Starfield right now, right? So it's probably a small core team. We don't know the number, but could be like 10 or 15, might even be a bit more, but it's not going to be like they have 50 to 100 people working on Elder Scrolls, right? It's going to be a small core group that are pre-productioning it out, getting everything lined up for whenever the main staff can come over and work on it. So even if you want to be optimistic, that puts Elder Scrolls 6 in a best case scenario probably 3 years after Starfield, right? And I think that's possible. Normally, it's not possible to make a big, giant open world game like this in 3 years. Look at how long Starfield's development cycle has been. However, this is not a new IP, and we know years of pre-production have been done, right, by the time Starfield comes out. They've said this whole time they've been doing pre-production. So I'm not going to tell you it's out in 3 years, but like best case scenario, 3 years after Starfield, you get that game. Fallout 5, it's going to be what? Another 3 years, 4 years or so after that? Y'all, you cannot, like I was talking about earlier, how it's a mistake to let a very valuable IP just sit for huge amounts of time. Same thing here for Fallout. They got to get something Fallout out before this. I totally understand being like, hey, Bethesda, they are the main people making Fallout. So Fallout 5, that belongs to Bethesda. Totally understand that viewpoint. I totally get it. But you need to have, there was these rumors of maybe a new Vegas sequel from Obsidian being talked about. You need to do something like that. Or honestly, even a Fallout 3 remake would be great. Or, you know, something like that. They got to do something. Silence. There's no way they could just sit on Fallout for that long. Because Fallout 5 is probably not going to be until next gen. I'm just being honest with you. Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 are more than likely the two Bethesda Game Studios games for this gen. That probably pushes Fallout 5 all the way to next gen. Or best case scenario, it's a cross-gen game at the end of this generation. Right? Because you're talking that game is at minimum 7-8 years away. So you're going to go an entire generation potentially with no Fallout game? Crazy to do that. So they're going to have to do something, Silence. I'm thinking either they're going to do a new Vegas sequel from Obsidian or maybe a remake or remaster, something. They got to have something Fallout. That would be a massive mistake to go a whole generation without a Fallout title. Logan Hardy. Hey, Benji, hope you're doing well. Do you think Hogwarts Legacy will release this year? I'm still leaning towards yes, but just like anything right now, it's hard to know for sure, but that game did look so polished whenever they showed it last. Like, I know there was like a few little frame rate hiccups in it, but overall, that game looked very far along to me. I was impressed at how good it looked whenever they showed it, and that was, what, months ago now? I think, right? It's been several months since we saw that game last. It looked in a good state, even though it did look crazy ambitious. I will say that game looked way more ambitious than I thought it was going to. But I think so. I think it's December. You know, Harry Potter has like this kind of somewhat weird, but it's true if you ask, like, if you talk to a lot of Harry Potter fans, attachment to the holidays. A lot of people rewatch the Harry Potter movies like around Christmas time, which you would think would almost be more of an October thing since it's like wizards and magic and stuff. But for a lot of people, they think of these titles almost more as fall and holiday type stuff, right? So I think a December release would actually be great for this game. not all games should go in December because you kind of want that Black Friday bump. But we saw, like, for example, with Cyberpunk, that game did massive sales in December. Smash Bros. Did huge sales in December. So it's a valid launch time, and it would go great with that whole holiday vibe that a lot of people get from Harry Potter. So, Logan, I predict it will still make this year, and probably early December is my guess. Sometime in the first 2 weeks of December. I think we had several super chats hit. Let me hit those really quick. Thank you so much, guys. We did. Thank you so much. Benji here with a 5. Great to see you, Benji. Thank you so much. Benji, what the hell with Netflix marketing? Umbrella Academy 3 is out and no visibility. Ms. Marvel didn't get much push either on Disney+. This is a great point about Ms. Marvel, actually. So first of all, in terms of Umbrella Academy, am I surprised? No. Netflix doesn't market anything. Their marketing is so terrible. The only show I've seen them market well in recent years, like recent time, has been Stranger Things Season 4. That's like the only show recently where I saw Netflix actually, you could tell, put a marketing push behind it, where they had some really slick, good trailers, where they were tweeting often about this thing, where they were doing a lot of cast interviews and stuff, right? Because, yeah, it's true that publications want to interview people, but also oftentimes, if you're a distributor, you're trying to get these interviews out there, right? You're contacting people and be like, hey, do you want an interview with them? Do you want an interview with them for marketing? Stranger Things Season 4 is like the only thing I've seen them market very well recently. So am I shocked at Umbrella Academy getting like no visibility? No, I hate to say it, but that's Netflix. They just spend like nothing on marketing. Real shame to be honest with you. Now, in terms of Ms. Marvel, this is very interesting because my argument has been that Disney has been the opposite. They've been so much better about marketing their shows. Whether you like the Star Wars shows and the MCU shows or you don't like them, they've done such a great job of marketing. They've made every single one of these feel like an event, right? Where whenever it's coming out, even if you're not a Star Wars fan or you're a Marvel fan, like Disney's putting that marketing muscle behind it and you can feel it. You can feel the push coming. Ms. Marvel did not, and I think this is the first time where we're seeing a bit of an issue because we've all wanted more regular stuff on Disney Plus, right? One of the criticisms of Disney has been, sometimes you're going weeks and weeks without a big major show, right? Whereas Netflix has almost too much content. There was the argument that Disney Plus maybe had a little too little content. But I think the thing that really hurt Ms. Marvel is that it came out while Obi-Wan was airing. I think that did hurt it big time because I know people feel a bit mixed on Obi-Wan, but the ratings have been huge. Huge. The ratings have been through the roof. Biggest Disney Plus debut ever. And just in general after that, whether it's people not liking the show or liking the show, you're seeing it trend all the time on Twitter. You're seeing the YouTube content around this, around creators reacting to it and stuff, getting huge views. Like, the show has been massive. And I think Obi-Wan kind of overshadowed Ms. Marvel. So, in retrospect, while it's kind of cool having 2 Disney Plus shows airing at the same time, maybe they should have waited. Maybe Ms. Marvel should have came out the week after Obi-Wan. You know what I mean? So it wasn't stealing the thunder from Ms. Marvel. So I think that was a bit of the issue, Benji. I really think Obi-Wan impacted Ms. Marvel. Now, Ms. Marvel's getting crazy word of mouth. So I think it could rebound. Its debut numbers weren't that great. But again, it came out the same day as Obi-Wan episodes. That's going to be a problem. So hopefully you see Ms. Marvel ramp up, in the latter half of the season now that Obi-Wan's done, but we'll have to see. Crylight here. So glad you're feeling better now with a 5 super chat, by the way. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Your live streams and tweets are super helpful in keeping up to date with the world of video game economics. So I really appreciate it, Crylight. I try to make this stream as engaging and easy as possible. And I do the same thing on my tweets. You often don't see me go like crazy on like financials or sales numbers, like so minute detail, because I'm going to be honest with you. The main reason I don't do that, it loses a lot of people. The main thing that I try and do whenever I'm communicating sales numbers or business or data or any of the stuff that I, as a fan, look at, I'm trying to bring it to the audience in a way that's easy, palatable, that can make just your average gamer, not someone that's like a hardcore sales enthusiast, understand what's happening, right? That's like my main goal. My main goal isn't to be like, hey, investor, blah, blah, blah. Here's how you can make more money on your investment. If some people take some things away from what I say in the investment community, because I do have a lot of those people that follow me, great, right? But I'm not as much into the minutia. I'm more communicating this as a fellow game fan to gamers out there to understand, right? Just the basic cursory stuff. They can look at my tweets or they can look at my YouTube and be like, okay, I can see kind of how that did, and I can see why that is important to me, or Xbox or PlayStation. And that's my main goal, and I think I do a decent job of that. So I appreciate it, Crylight. I really appreciate that, and I do my best. Thank you for that super chat. Benji here with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much, Benji. That's your second one of the stream, man. I really appreciate that. Benji, I saw several games where there isn't an Xbox One version while there is a PS4 version. For example, Street Fighter 6. Is this a platform manufacturer call or third-party call? Benji, yeah, that's super interesting. I think that this is a developer thing. I saw Digital Foundry comment on this, and this has been a known thing for a while. The Xbox One, the OG, the original, is super difficult to develop for at this point in time. That thing is such old hardware. And to be honest with you, so much of the Xbox ecosystem's already moving to Series X and S. And so much, the Xbox One already had a much smaller install base than PS4. I actually think that this makes so much sense for Street Fighter 6 and probably was the right call. I know it's a bummer for OG original Xbox One owners. Like, I get that. But for Capcom, how many sales realistically, because this is coming out next year, keep that in mind, not this year, next year. How many sales realistically was Capcom probably going to get in 2023 from the original Xbox One? I'm going to be honest with you, that number was probably very small. Very small. Maybe at best you're talking a couple 100,000 at best, right? I'm talking like a really good scenario. It sells a few 100K on the original Xbox One. And when I say a few hundred, I mean definitely I don't even think this thing would do over 500,000 on the original Xbox One by next year. So it probably would have caused so much headache in development and so much resources for what would not be a big financial return that I actually can totally get why they skipped it. I know it looks weird, but it probably makes a lot of sense for them. PS4 has such a bigger install base, than Xbox One did. We're talking basically like double, slightly more than double of what the Xbox One did. And it also had slightly, it wasn't super slight, but it was better hardware than the original Xbox One. Probably the right call. I don't think this was Microsoft telling them not to do it. I think Capcom just kind of looked at the financials, looked at the development pipeline, and we're like, we don't really need original Xbox One, and it's going to make our development cycle way easier than trying to get it all the way down to that thing. So probably right call. Yeah, it's interesting, but I think it was the right decision. And it's a bummer for original Xbox One owners, but by 2023, there's not going to be a ton of the hardcore Xbox fan base that hasn't transitioned over to Xbox Series by next year, to be honest with you. Xbox One's going to be over 20 million next year. Lifetime Xbox One sales, or Xbox Series, I might say Xbox One. Xbox Series is going to be over 20 million. Total Xbox One sales for the generation are like somewhere north of 50 million. You're talking next year, you're already at like halfway to the original install base of Xbox One already with Xbox Series. So many of the Xbox community already moved over. So, shouldn't be a big deal. But it is interesting. Not often you see something like that. JCat, thank you for modding. You're doing a great job, it looks like. I'm seeing some deleted stuff in here, so thank you, JCat. I really appreciate you helping mod the channel. You're amazing, so thank you for helping keep the chat clean and looking good. All right, where did I leave off? Man, there's so many questions in chat say, holy cow. Luckily, I'm off work today, so I'm still going to hit a lot of questions, guys. Don't worry. But wow, there's a lot in chat. Holy cow. Holy cow. I'm still scrolling up. I barely have gotten through the free questions. My goodness. Yoda Soda. Hey, Benji, what do you think the strategy for acquisitions for PlayStation right now? Why haven't they bought studios like Ember Lab, for example? That is interesting to me. You know, I've been predicting for a while that Ember Lab is going to get acquired by Sony. But one thing I've always said, Yoda Soda, I always had one, what's the word I'm looking for? Can't think of the word, but I've had like one thing that I've mentioned whenever I say that. I've always said the wrinkle in this could be there is a chance, I know it seems unlikely, but there is a chance that Ember Lab does not want to sell their studio, right? You always have to keep that in mind with acquisitions. Even if someone wants to acquire a studio, whenever they're an independently owned studio, you know, you can actually do what's called a hostile takeover for a publicly traded company. If they don't want to sell, you can just buy out their shares. But you can't do that for a privately held company. So if we don't see Ember Lab acquired in the next, I would say, 1 to 2 years, my guess, Yoda Soda, is that it comes down to Ember Lab not wanting to be bought. It could be that they think that they could either be multi-platform in the future and make a whole lot of money doing that, or it could be a scenario where they think that their price could go up. So maybe we make another 1 or 2 games and then sell so we can get even more money than what we're getting right now, right? It's a bet. You're making a gamble. But if you think, hey, I think we could be even more valuable a few years down the road, there's also a wrinkle that they could do something like that. So I think Sony themselves would be interested because Kena was a financial success. We know that. It was a big financial success, actually, for both Ember Lab and Sony. Went great for both of them. I could see Kena becoming a pretty big franchise for Sony. So I think Sony wants it, but Ember Lab maybe doesn't want to sell. Maybe they just don't want to sell. Uncensored Maverick. Benji, appreciate the content. Cheers. Thank you so much, Uncensored. I love doing these chats. Dead Plant thought the show was trash. Everyone's got different opinions. I ain't going to knock you for it. It's okay to think that. Silence PP7. Dragon's Dogma 2 finally got announced yesterday. Do any of the leaks suggest to you that it could hit 2023 along with Resident Evil 4 or in Street Fighter 6? Yes, it will be. Or do you think Capcom has it lined up for 2024 instead? This is coming next year unless the delay it caught was crazy. Because this game was originally scheduled to release in 2022. I want to double make sure of that. But I'm pretty sure the very original goal was to launch this game this current year that we're in right now. And we know that from the Capcom leaks. I want to make sure of this before I tell you guys this is fact. Man, I could have found this easily before, but now that this announcement's happened, everything, if you search for it, it's just like everything's talking about the, yeah, no, it was. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so in the original Capcom documents that leaked out, this game was targeting 2022. So unless it got delayed by 2 years, it's coming next year. My guess is it's late, though. That's probably why you didn't really see anything on the game. It's probably why they didn't give you a big, huge, crazy trailer, because this game's probably targeting the second half of 2023, whereas it looks like Resident Evil 4 and Street Fighter... Well, Resident Evil 4 we know is March, right? And Street Fighter 6, it looks like, is... What did they say? Did they say summer? So this game, I'm guessing, is probably a fall game for them, but Silence PP7, it should be 2023. If it's 2024, that means this game got delayed by 2 years, which is pretty surprising. COVID did delay a lot of games by like a year or so. Not a lot of games caught a 2-year delay. So I don't want to tell you it's impossible, but my guess is Capcom internally has this targeting fall 2023. Which would be their next fiscal year anyways, so they don't really have to like go crazy with showing it right now, right? They can kind of wait and focus on the stuff that's this fiscal year, like Street Fighter and Resident Evil 4 Remake. Peter, 420, Xbox Showcase was a 6 out of 10 for me. Only 5 games of interest out of 30. No new game reveals for me, and no third-party AAA titles revealed or shown. Every year is basically just a Game Pass showcase. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that opinion. Jason Benjamin. Benji, the ESA have said E3 2023 is happening. Do you think publishers and developers will attend the event or go to Summer Game Fest in their own showcases instead? Is E3 dead or good? Jason, what a mess this is all turning out like to be. You know, you've got Summer Game Fest going on now, and that's apparently turning into a live event. And you got E3 trying to come back, and that's apparently going to be an in-person event. And then you got Sony, who ain't going to show up at either one of these. Like, maybe they'll show a game like they did for Jeff's show, but they're not going to be putting on a big, huge booth at Jeff's show or E3. It's hard to say, Jason. I have no idea how this is going to shake out. I don't know. I feel like next year might be the biggest mess we've had so far. Like, because at least when E3 was dead, like, we kind of just knew. Like, everyone's just doing their own showcase sporadically over the summer. Next year, I feel like might be really freaking messy because you got just stuff all over the place trying to figure out E3 and what's this Game Fest in person look like and when's Sony going to go. And so, Jason, I don't know how this is going to work out, but my prediction for you is it's a mess. That's my prediction. Lul, Xbox Showcase was a solid 8 out of 10. 3.5 million watched on Xbox's YouTube. There we go. So a bit of a variety, right? You got some people like that said they really didn't like this show. You got some people that gave it like a 6 out of 10, which is like a mediocre. Now you got like an 8 out of 10, which is pretty good. You know, I kind of came in at that B+. That's how I scored it. Yeah, see, Peter 420 is kind of reflecting what I said. Xbox Showcase was great for casuals and in general, but for the hardcore fans, not so much. Most polls had either an A or B grade, which shows I'm in the minority. I think that's actually a pretty accurate way of saying it, actually, Peter. I think it was really the hardcores that are going to be more upset about this than just a casual Xbox gamer. Those of us that are like always online and want to see the craziest reveals and what's going to blow my mind, that is going to be a disappointing element for you. But again, your average gamer who just like tunes in to watch something and hopes they see something cool, probably were pretty excited for Starfield, probably were interested in Forza Motorsport, and for those people, it probably hit good. Again, I wouldn't classify this show as great, but probably for most people, it was a good show, that kind of thing, you know what I mean? Luel, they messed up not showing Avowed or Hellblade. Avowed to me was the issue. Yep. Even a teaser slice of gameplay would have been great. Yeah, of everything that was missing at this showcase, there's no doubt to me the biggest surprise, and I'm not surprised now, actually. As soon as they said this is going to focus on the next 12 months, like I knew in my head all of a sudden, I was like, oh, dang, we might not see like Avowed or anything. Because I think that is coming next year, but I think it's probably going to be like holiday of next year. And I was like, wow, so we're not going to see a lot of those first-party games. Like, I knew immediately, as soon as they said that, because I think most of us knew most of those first-party Xbox games are not coming in the first half by the first half of next year. So I was like, oh, but leading into the show, I was very confident Avowed would be there, but I didn't know they were doing the 12-month thing. I think Hellblade not being shown is not an issue because I think they've already shown Hellblade 2 now multiple times, and they still need to show Hellblade again before it comes out. But I think you don't show Hellblade again until you have a release date and you do a big giant showing. And I don't think they're ready for either, right? They're probably not ready to show you a ton of gameplay, and they also probably have no idea what their release date is. So Hellblade was less of an issue because we've already seen it. But not seeing Avowed to me was a bit of a surprise because we only saw one concept-ish trailer and not much else. Whereas Hellblade, we saw that big Game Awards thing. They showed it at actually Game Awards 2 years in a row. So we've seen more of Hellblade. But yeah. Forzathon Xbox Showcase was a B. Yeah, exactly. Kind of where I fell. Randy Norman, Starfield gameplay had massive engagement. Gameplay already has more views than the Fallout 4 gameplay reveal and more likes on the Bethesda Software YouTube. But I agree they needed more AAA first party. Exactly. Starfield did really, really good numbers. So I know some people are like disappointed by what they showed, but I think the numbers show that Starfield has a lot of excitement. Javier Macias Leon. Benji, any sales prediction for The Last of Us Part 1? Ooh, good. Part 2 is now over 10 million. First of Us, as we know, the first game plus remasters over 20, but obviously this ain't gonna come close to that. Current gen only and a remake. I think this will hit 5 million. I don't know how much more than that though. Will this become another 10 million unit seller? Here's what I'll say, Javier. If the show is a big hit, right? If the series is a really big hit, because that's going to come next year on HBO. We've seen stuff like the show for Netflix for The Witcher have a huge boost for Witcher 3 sales. So if the show is a big hit, you could see this thing actually kind of blow up as a lot of people buy the game because they love the show. Not impossible, because as I mentioned earlier, even with hitting 20 million Last of Us sales, you're still talking, there's still tens and tens and tens of millions of PlayStation 4 owners that never bought The Last of Us, the original. We know that. You just got to look at the sales numbers and look at the install base. So there's still room for growth there. As well as people that were too young when the original Last of Us came out that are now old enough to play The Last of Us. So I think this can definitely get to over 5 million. Do I think it can get to 10 plus million without heavy bundling? I'm going to say that that's going to be harder to do, even with the first game being so beloved, considering that The Last of Us Part 2 just hit 10 million. But if the show's good, it could definitely do it. I wouldn't rule out 10 million sales, to be honest with you, but I would say I'm not like guaranteed 10 million plus seller, at least not quickly. But maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. But it should definitely do over 5. Definitely should do over 5 million. And again, it could do way more than that long term. Whenever I'm saying 5 million, I'm predicting like somewhat short term. In the next year or so, I think this thing, like within a year of release, is what I'm saying. I think it could do like 5 million within a year. I don't know that it can do like 10 million within a year, though. Even with the first being so beloved, that to me seems like a stretch. But 5 million in a year, I think so. I think it could do 5 million in a year. I think I might have had some super chats hit. Let me check that out. There were some super chats. Was it just one? No, there was a couple. All right, here we go. Highlander001 that came in with 2 super chats. Wow, thank you so much, Highlander. One of them is a 5 from Highlander. It seems Microsoft is developing games for the Series X and S for 2023 and on. When do you see Sony making the switch? I mean, now. Last of Us Part 1's current gen only. So, they're going to start right now. I think you mean like permanent. Like, when is there going to be no more cross-gen games, right? I think that's what you're saying. I still feel like, because the way Sony has talked, I still feel like there's something cross-gen coming from Sony after God of War. I don't know what that is, but just the way Sony has talked, right? They have mentioned too many times where it seems that they're insinuating more cross-gen games. I don't think it's going to be everything. We kind of already know that. Look at Last of Us Part 1. But I feel like there's going to be one other thing after God of War that's cross-gen from Sony. So I would say, when is there no more cross-gen games? Probably the first year where it's a whole year. Like there's nothing cross-gen. Probably 2024. Because I still think there will be something cross-gen in 2023 from Sony. I don't know. I just get that vibe that they're going to have something cross-gen next year. I don't know what it's going to be, but I think 2024 will be the first year where you see 0 cross-gen games from Sony. I'd be very surprised that late if they still have stuff cross-gen or anything, right? So probably still something in next year, but the year after that, I can't see it. And Highlander with a 2 super chat. JCat needs a raise. I should give JCat a nice bonus hookup for helping mod the channel. I will have to give JCat something for sure. For sure. You're right. I do need to give JCat some kind of hookup. What that's going to be, I don't know. I can give JCat money. JCat wants some money. I'll give JCat some money. Because I do appreciate everything that JCat does for this channel. So for sure. Now, I don't make like thousands of dollars on YouTube. So unfortunately, hey, if I made a ton of money on YouTube, I'd give JCat a whole bunch of money and split in. But I don't make a ton of money. But I will definitely give JCat something. You're right. JCat needs a nice bonus. Kelligrim here with a 5 super chat. Don't miss Highlander super chats. Oh, dude, you didn't need to give a super chat just for that. I got him. Thank you so much, Kelligrim. Thank you, Highlander. Thank you, Kelligrim. Thank you, everyone, for all the super chats. I really appreciate it. All right. I gotta blast some questions out because there's still like a million questions I haven't gotten to in chat. So, dang. Okay, so we actually got so much in chat that it's moved so far now I can't see the original chats. So, wow, we got a problem. I can't scroll up now. Chat demolished a lot. Okay. So I can't see now above Highlander's super chat about JCat. So all of those comments before then, I'm sorry. Chat filled up too much. I can't get to those questions. So I'm going to have to just be hitting them here from the bottom. I apologize. It's not on me. That's on YouTube. I cannot scroll up. Oh, wait. I think I just got... Nope, I didn't. All right, I'm going to... If you guys got questions, start blasting them down to the bottom because I literally can't see past... I can only see like 10 things in here. So I'm going to just go for 10 or so minutes. I'm going to go for 10 or so minutes, and I apologize to everyone whose questions were above this Highlander one about JCat, but they're gone. I can't see them. So I'm going to just start hitting what I can. Peter420, God of War Ragnarok seems to be the last cross-gen game, whereas Halo was the last from Microsoft. I still feel like there's one more, but I hope I'm wrong, to be honest with you. But I just feel like it. JCat with a super just saying, nah, I don't do money. I do this for fun. Well, JCat, yeah, it's still a huge help. It's still a huge help, so I appreciate it. Maybe I can, you're a big Nintendo fan. Maybe I can send you like a super stacked eShop gift card. Ooh, right? Wouldn't that be a good idea, guys? Give JCat a big fat eShop card. Can I send that? Because I know you're not in the US. Can I send JCat a US eShop card, or how would I do that? Maybe I can give JCat a big old eShop gift card. Peter420, Capcom has been excellent since 2017's Resident Evil 7. Yes, I agree. That is a great call out. That really felt like where things turned around with Capcom. That really was a turning point for Capcom. And it's not a coincidence, I don't think, that that's also when RE Engine started becoming a big deal for them. I don't think that's a coincidence at all. So I agree. Resident Evil 7 on. From that moment on, this company has felt like they are just on an amazing trajectory. Completely agreed. Because that was before World, right? Wasn't Monster Hunter World 2018? Right? I want to make sure of that. Yep, 2018. So, yep, I agree. 2017 on. JCat says follow JCat on Twitter, and that's how you can pay JCat. Follow her on Twitter, y'all. Oh, yeah, this is a fun one. Ali Pepe's Steam numbers for Dragon's Dogma 1 have been insane. Yeah, this is really cool to see. So, the raw numbers, right, haven't been like crazy, right? They're peaking at like 5,000 to 6,000 concurrent players. And that doesn't sound like anything crazy, right? Because we see so many games hit like 50,000, 60,000. What's been really cool to see for Dragon's Dogma on Steam, it's posted the highest numbers it has since 2016. That's what makes it so cool. It's not necessarily that the raw number is that high, but you're talking about more people are playing this game right now than have played this game in the past 6 years. That's so cool to see. Really shows that the combination of the Dragon's Dogma 2 announcement with the nice sale that it had has really driven interest back into this. And you know what this tells me, Ali Pepes, or Pepes, if I'm saying that right? Dragon's Dogma 2 has potential to really break out compared to that first game. I really think so. I think Dragon's Dogma 2 is going to greatly outsell the first game. And it's very cool to see people discovering Dragon's Dogma 1 for the first time. Ali Poppy also said Diablo 4 looks amazing. I agree. I think one of the reasons why the Xbox show hit pretty good for me compared to some people is I'm one of those people that likes a lot of different genres. So, like, for me, there was a ton in this show that I cannot wait to play. Like, I cannot wait to play Diablo, cannot wait to play Overwatch 2, cannot wait to play Starfield, cannot wait to play Redfall, cannot wait to play Forza, cannot wait to play, what was that game? The Last Case of Benedict something. I thought that looked like a sick indie game. Like, there was a lot. But again, it lacked the major announcements for me to give this an A. But there was a lot in there that I thought looked really good that I'm excited for. All right. Oh, almost K. Last year's show had 2.4 million views compared to 3.9 million views on this year's Xbox channel. That's actually a really great metric. I had not made that direct comparison, but wow, that's great growth. You're talking about it's basically doubled, pretty close, right? Not yet, but that's a good increase. Now, this is a good point from Ashes to Ashes. They should have just tweeted out ahead of time, be ready for a showcase of great games you're going to get to enjoy in the next 12 months. You know, that might have set expectations better. Again, I feel like with general audiences, they weren't super disappointed, but for some people, if you knew that going in, like you see that happen a lot with like Nintendo Directs or something where they'll say ahead of time a show primarily focused on games launching this winter or something like that. Like they clarify things. Ashes to Ashes, that might have helped a bit with expectations, saying like in the original announcement of this game, of this showcase, you know, focused mostly, because there was a few little tiny things that are obviously not in the next 12 months. That Kojima announcement, that game ain't coming out within the next 12 months. I don't think, at least, unless that thing's way further along than we all think it is. So, if they did that beforehand, like focused primarily on games in the next year, that might have helped. That might have helped some people's expectations. Fernando Harada, didn't Jason Schreier just say that Avowed changed game directors? Might have. I might have missed that, though, so I'm not sure. But Ali says that was in 2020, so that was a while ago. So that wouldn't be just now. If that was in 2020, we're talking 2 years ago now, so that was quite a while. I think we had a super chat hit. Highlander, wow, I think that's your third super chat. You do not need to do that many super chats. Thank you, Highlander, with a 5. Your thoughts on the fact Xbox only showed games coming out this year? I like this format. We've talked about it a lot. I'll be honest with you, I didn't love it the way some people did. I know some people really liked that from Microsoft. I think it would have been great. Do this exact show with 2 big reveals for further out. And I think that this would be met very well. Like, I think lacking 1 or 2 bigger further out things is really what hurt it for some people. I think moving forward, focusing mostly on the next 12 months probably is a good call, because those games are going to be further along. You're going to be able to show more gameplay of those games. And it's also a better marketing tool for Game Pass to be like, hey, here's what you're getting with your subscription in the near term. But I think doing almost only that and having a few further off announcements not in your show does hurt it. So Highlander, what I'd like to see from them, 90% of your show each year being the next 12 months. Good call, actually. But like, save 10% in there for really cool further out reveals as well. That's, I think, would be the best thing. Server Error thinks that the big showcases should be about revealing future games and surprises. Some of that for sure, but not all of it, especially I would say for Microsoft, because they have a tool in Game Pass that they got to put a lot of marketing focus on. That's the future of their business. So, but I do agree with you that you need some of that. That's what was lacking this year. You do need some of that. You do need future further off stuff shown. All right, I think we're coming to the end here because so many questions got lost. I feel terrible about that. But chat filled up so much today that it literally cut off the top of chat. So I lost a ton of questions today. I don't think that's happened before. Pixelbit G says, I think Spider-Man 2 ends up cross-gen since it's the same engine. Ooh. No, I don't think so. Didn't they say it's PS5 only? Didn't they say that? I think they said PS5 only when they announced that game. Pixelbit, I think that one will be current gen only. No, you guys aren't to blame. You guys are saying you're sorry because the chat got cut off. It's not your guys' fault. What happened was that chat was just so full that when I scrolled down and tried to scroll back up, it lost them. But that's not on you guys that gave super chats. That's just the chat was so full today. Ali, have you heard anything concrete regarding the PS5 Pro rumors? No. Do I think PS5 Pro is going to happen this gen? Yes. I've been I've been saying that since the beginning. I do think you're going to get mid-gen refreshes on these consoles. I know a lot of people say they're not needed because the whole reason we got them last gen was 4K. No one needs 8K. I agree about the resolution boost, but I don't think that's what the mid-gen refreshes will focus on. They're going to focus probably on increased ray tracing capabilities because the reality is that these consoles do struggle with ray tracing. Can they do ray tracing? Yeah. It's not that they can't do any ray tracing. They can do ray tracing, but it's definitely nowhere close to what you're getting on PC right now. Like it's just not. Like if you look at the best games, I should say. If you look at the best ray trace games on PC, there's quite a big gap between what's happening there and what's happening on consoles. So I think mid-gen refreshes will happen. I think the big way they're going to sell them is they're going to say way better ray tracing. They'll probably still have further SSD improvements. They'll probably boost some clocks, some things like this. Do I think you're going to get like a console that's going to be, over 2 times the GPU that we see in the current consoles? I don't think they'll do that. But I think they'll market them in different ways with different improvements than what we saw last gen, where it was all about 4K. But they'll want to do that because they'll want healthy sales late in the generation. That's the main reason. The main reason that will more than likely happen is because right now these consoles still feel new, but in 2025, these things are not going to feel new anymore. And they're going to want people to still be buying platforms. So I think they will have mid-gen refreshes, but I haven't heard anything, no. Kellegrim, what are the odds of another publisher getting an exclusive Star Wars deal like EA had? 0. That's over. I think Disney realized the EA deal was a huge mistake in retrospect. Not that they didn't have some big successes, but going exclusive, just not a good call. Now, an exclusive game, yeah, that could happen. Someone could pay for an exclusive Star Wars game. I mean, that's happening with Knights of the Old Republic, right? The remake is exclusive on consoles, on PlayStation. So games, I would say, Kellegrim, there could definitely be multiple Star Wars exclusives in the works. But as a whole for the brand, no. I don't think Disney will ever do that again for Star Wars or Marvel or anything. I'm going to just take like 2 more questions and I got to go. Benji, are Capcom kind of moving on from first-person view with Shadows of Rose DLC and the new third-party view for Village? I think, Benji, what they're doing is not moving away. I think that they're trying to design stuff now to where they can do first and third person on their games, which is a brilliant call. We've had this debate a whole bunch, like, should they do first person Resident Evil going forward? Should they do third person? There are people that prefer first person, and there are people that prefer third person. I'll be honest, for the more horror focused Resident Evil titles like 7 and Village, but Village even toned back the horror a bit. I prefer first person on those because I think it's way scarier than third person. But like for Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes, I really loved doing the third person perspective. If they can get their games down in development now to where they can offer first and third person views on Resident Evil games, that's a huge win for them because then you don't push anyone away, right? You get everybody that likes Resident Evil playing it. So yeah, I think that's probably what they're testing because now Village is going to be fully playable either way. So if Resident Evil 9 is out of the box, not an update later, out of the box, first person or third person at launch, that's great. That would be great for them. Ghost Tunnels, what do you think will happen? Grand Theft Auto 6 in 2024 and 4 years later, Red Dead 3. I think that Grand Theft Auto 6 will get announced for next year, yes. I think that's going to get announced at the end of this year. But do I know if it'll make 2024? I don't know. But I do think they're going to announce Grand Theft Auto 6, yes, with a 2024 release date. Yep, either late this year or early next year. Maybe even a late 2023 release date, but we'll have to see. Probably 2024. So if it is 2024, they probably will wait to announce it then till next year, but we'll have to see. All right, I'm going to take this super chat from Benji and then one more free and then I'm out. Benji with a 5 super chat. I think that's like your 3rd super chat or so of the chat. Thank you so much. Benji, the Switch seems to be a lock. The best-selling platform this fiscal year. What about next year, your early call? Ooh, that's a great question. That is a great question. No, I'll say PS5 next year. Switch is going to have a great year this year, but it is declining. Right now in Japan, it's almost 1 million units down now for the year. Still great sales. To be clear, I'm not saying Switch is selling bad. I'm just saying it is declining. The Switch is approaching the end of its life cycle. In Japan alone, it's not there yet, but it's approaching 1 million units down year over year. I don't know if it'll be the best selling next fiscal year. I agree with you this fiscal year, it will be number 1. But next year, I think PS5. I would say next year, PlayStation 5 will be the best selling for the fiscal year. Unless Switch 2 is out next fiscal year, which might happen. So if that comes out next year, then things get interesting. In fact, now that I think about it, Switch 2 is probably almost guaranteed for next fiscal year because that would be going through March 2024. I'd be surprised if Switch 2 is later than March 2024. Holiday 2024 seems too late to me for Switch 2. So that'll be interesting, but Yeah, PS5. I'm still going to go PS5 next fiscal year. Switch this fiscal year, best-selling hardware. Next fiscal year, I'm going to go PS5, and then the fiscal year after that would probably be Switch 2. All right, I think I'm going to do one more free question, and I got to go. I apologize, but we've been going for quite a while now, almost 2 hours, actually. Holy cow. And I lost a bunch of questions, so one more. Abdul. Benji Boy, that Kojima announcement is clearly just to tell gamers that a game is going to come. Kojima emphasized on can't wait to working together and working in the future. Doubt it's Overdose. The main reason I think it's Overdose is, and I don't know that Overdose is the Xbox game, but I think it's probably the Xbox game, is that the rumors are is that he's been trying to make a streaming horror title for a while, and this is a streaming deal. Now, it's still 100% a game, and but the main thing is we know this because he tried to make a deal with Stadia on a horror title. That's known. He was trying to get a horror title with Stadia that was using cloud infrastructure, and then that fell apart. It would make sense, and that was a horror game, and it would make sense that the next partner he gets on a cloud game, it's a horror game, could be Overdose. Again, I don't know that it's Overdose. I knew that Kojima was working with Xbox before Grubb even released his report. I've talked about that before, and all I'll say is I proved that to Grubb before. I knew that this was coming. Like, I've known about this for a while. But I haven't ever, and I still never knew the game. I just knew Kojima is making a game with Xbox. So, I think it's Overdose because I think it's a horror title. I think it's probably the game he wanted to partner with Stadia on, but I don't know that. It could be something else, Abdul. It doesn't have to be Overdose. It could be something else, but I think it is. And then Ghost Tunnel said I missed their question. Well, I can't get to them all, Ghost Tunnels, because it's been a really long stream, but let me check. Oh, no, I answered that one. Okay, I get it. That was your Grand Theft Auto one. Okay. I think I'm going to call it there, guys. I'm going to call it. It's been a long one. All right. I love doing this chat, but it's been a while. We lost a bunch of questions, and I got to bounce. It's been an hour and 45. That's pretty long. All right, everybody. Thanks for a great chat. Thanks for all the super chats. Thanks for all the free questions. I apologize to anyone whose questions I missed. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're not already. We do one of these live chats every single week. We will be back next week because I'm not on vacation or anything. So next week we'll be back with the live chat. Follow me on Twitter if you're not already. I'm Benji-Sales on Twitter. And yeah, hope you all have an amazing day, an amazing night. Thank you for a great stream. Thank you for a good turnout. Thank you for a ton of questions and the super chats. Stay safe. Play some games, and I'll see you either on Twitter here real soon, or I'll see you next week on YouTube if you're only here. Bye, everybody.